Angel Manabat.
Dr. Lising. Dr. Lising is a classmate, so I know he'll talk a lot of good things about me. So just to follow up on the question on the efficacy of vaccines on farms that have almost everything on it. So this could probably be one of the examples of good management, trying to be a good management of a PRRS problem on a farm that actually has almost everything, from PCV, from mycoplasma, from possible hog cholera. So, okay, at start, we'll just give you a background on the PRRS situation in the Philippines. PRRS has been a very, very big problem in the country, and it has been attributed to be causing a lot of economic problems, especially during the last outbreak that started in 2007. That lasted for how many months and actually spread to a lot of parts of the Philippines. We did set samples to try to determine the type of strain that's what's hitting the Philippines in those years. And we found out that it's homologous to, related to the Chinese strains. And farms has been doing a lot of things, vets, owners has been doing a lot of things to actually control and manage the PRRS problem in the country. In terms of eradicating the virus in farms, maybe only the PIC nucleus and multiplier herds, which are located in islands or in very isolated areas in the country, has been able to really follow a program that actually eradicates the PRRS. But unfortunately, majority of the farms in the Philippines are located in very dense farms, dense areas wherein a lot of farms are located. Okay, what are the control measures? Just for review, control measures we do for PRRS, and I think most of the practitioners will be familiar with this. One is guilt input management, basically isolation and acclimatization, which is basically related also to herd closure. If you try to control the number of times you have to bring in gilts to your farm, then that actually reduces the risk of bringing new diseases or the PRRS virus into your farm. So usually we do this, we try to get all the requirements for gilts into a farm, maybe good for 3 to 4 months, close it, and don't bring any more gilts in. Other measures would be depopulation, repopulation. For those who have a lot more money than some farms, then they can actually kill or sell their pigs and buy new ones. But sometimes the practicality of such activity would deter from farmers from following such programs. Since if you're located in a high dense area and the other farm doesn't do the same thing, then you're just putting yourself in a position that you might get hit again. All in and all out adherence, which is very basic on to prevent transfer within farms. Okay, virus elimination, which is basically total herd depopulation. Test and removal. After you've done it, you test if there are any positive reactors, then you take them out. And of course, vaccination is available in the country. Okay, again, a review on the PRRS, on how it's transmitted. I heard a question this morning on basically on the transmission between animals. Basically, the main mode of transmission between farms is basically the transmission via pigs, live animals. So as I said, every time you bring in an animal, then there's always a risk of bringing in the virus. Okay, infected animals can be the gilts, and as mentioned also earlier, it's through semen. Okay, materials coming from the feed sacks, from the trucks, can also bring in the PRRS. And it's also been found out in some researches that even non-porcine species like birds can actually transmit the PRRS from farm to farm. And there's also cases where insects were being found to be possible carriers for PRRS. Okay, one thing that's very important, talking about high dense areas, is actually the area spread of PRRS. Even though you have a very good biosecurity program in your farm, you prevent inputs of gilts, you disinfect everything that comes in, the possibility of getting infected through air is very possible. Just to mention a study in France that said that PRRS can be spread very easily within 500 meters. If your farm is located within another 500 meters of a slaughterhouse, transport area, selling house, then if there's PRRS in that area, it's very easy to transfer the PRRS virus into your farm. And some has been seen that as about 2% of that study, a kilometer radius would be very, very easy for the PRRS to come in. Okay. Okay, going to the farm I'm going to present about. This is actually a farm that's during the 2007-2008 has been contemplating of closing down already because of the severe problems that the PRRS outbreak has caused its farm. It's located in a farm estate. I'll show you a picture later on what a farm estate looks like in the Philippines. And the farm has actually experienced a lot of losses already in terms of mortality, problems in the reproductive performances, abortion left and right. Farrowing rates are going as low as 50%. Okay. Early farrowings, the pigs comes out 5 days earlier, but basically they just die off, so it's still considered as abortion in some ways. And mortality can go as high as 20% in the grower and weaner sections. Okay, if you're going to look at the serological profile before any vaccination program has been done, you can see that the problem is, one of the problems is basically some of the cells are still negative. They're not, they don't have enough antibodies or no antibodies is detected from these cells. Okay, and seroconversion of the piglets happened in about 7 weeks. So you can see that there is a PRRS problem in the farm. So since this is not, the farm is not vaccinating for it. Okay. Profile also shows that the gilts are already positive. So most likely they're positive because they are, the gilt growing pens are located in the growing houses. So near the growing houses where possibly the battle for PRRS happens. So they are exposed and they actually develop antibodies for PRRS. However, the subpopulations in the sow herd is, we feel is the one doing a lot of problem in the herd. Okay. So in any situation, what usually happens is the vets or the owners really sit down and, okay, let's try first medicating because you see a lot of Haemophilus persuis, you see a lot of mycoplasma happening. So you try to put in a lot of the good medications, a lot of money into improving the buildings, all in, all out movement. We've actually closed down the farms to inputs of gilts, but unfortunately we haven't been able to bring down the mortalities and increase the reproductive performances to an acceptable level. So, and with the increasing prices of the inputs, the farm is actually ready to, okay, say, I can't sustain the facility anymore. And said, okay, I'll try to spend on a few more things before I said I'll give up on pig raising. Just to show what a dense farm is, actually this is the, this is where the farm is, 800 south. Another farm is just a few meters away. So you can just walk to the next farm. You can actually smell the pigs from the next farm. So when the wind changes, so it's very near. Then there's another farm lower. So all the trucks actually passes through here, going to that farm. This is the last farm on that road. Okay, so most of the farm goes through here. And we still have farms. If I make show you a bigger map, actually you'd see that there's still a lot of farms, a lot of farms going in that area here. And actually, if you're going to, it's not working. Push the button to go back. Okay. So if you're going to look, actually, the sites, or the site is back. Sorry. Use this one. So if you're going to look here, if you've read, if you're updated on what happened in the Philippines in 2007, 2008, the samples we had that showed that we have a virus strain that's related to the Chinese strain is actually located a few kilometers in this way. Okay. 1, 2, 3. Okay. So as you can see, this is a very dense area, and if PIC actually, most of the farms that PIC runs in the Philippines doesn't vaccinate for PRRS because we're located in very isolated areas, and we can actually follow good biosecurity measures. But I think in these farms, if you're located, even if you do good biosecurity measures, maybe the last part would be the air filtration, which unfortunately might not be practical for some Philippine farms. It's going to be very difficult to stand on your own and say, okay, I'll eradicate PRRS here, and if this farm doesn't really care, then maybe next year you get hit again. Okay, so the farm has tried to control the PR situation with everything. Closed herd multiplication, as I mentioned, and after they've done it, okay, finally, okay, let's try to use vaccination. Okay. And in some cases, usually choice of vaccination, I think it happens in many countries that it's actually price or actually how you choose your vaccination. So the first one is they chose to use a European strain vaccine. They followed it very strictly, 21 days. They vaccinated the piglets. They did quarterly vaccinations of their breeding sows. There is improvement seen, but unfortunately, it's not into the level that is acceptable to the owner and actually to the industry. If you're still performing at that level after a lot of money has been spent on vaccinating, then it's still not good enough. So there was a dip in mortalities, but as I mentioned, it wasn't good enough. So in mid last year, they decided to shift to another strain just to try out because they're willing to try anything at that point. Okay. So the same schedule was followed, 21 days vaccination, same with the sows. And amazingly, whether it's related to the vaccination or not, because we've also done our efforts to improve mating patterns, timing, how to breed the sows, farrowing conception rates increased dramatically. From 50 to 60%, they were hitting 85, and in 1 or 2 months, they actually hit the 90% in farrowing rates. And mainly because there are lower incidence of recycles, premature births, and abortions. But as I said, since we also did a lot of things, we really couldn't attribute it. It just so happens when we vaccinated it, the few months after, the reproductive performances actually improved. Okay, what we saw was we can actually attribute more to the vaccine is the remarkable decrease in morbidity and mortalities. As you can see here, this chart shows this part. This is the pre-weaning mortality. This part is when we use the European strain vaccine. As you can see, we did lower down the mortalities from the 60s. Actually, this one is a very high incidence because there's some issues there. Usually, the mortalities would be around about the 40 to 50% mortality. When we use the EU vaccine, we're able to lower it down to a respectable 32%. But 32% is still 32%. So even though if we lower it down at that level, it still won't be good enough to be able to sustain your business. So at this point, we started to use the shift into the new strain, the American strain here. And as you can see, the last few months, and this has actually been maintained at this level, we've been able to maintain it at an average of 13.2%, the mortality in the pre-weaning. It's still very high, it's still high, but we'll take anything. we'll take any dip in mortalities at this level. So from a high of about 50 to 60, going into the 13.2, the owners are, well, very happy with the performance. Same with the post-weaning. As you can see, if you're going to compute, there's almost no piglets left to sell because of the mortalities in this farm. We started with the post-wean at around 20, 22, 24. Actually, this is going to be higher. The average was 21, which just shows that there was really no improvement on post-wean. But when we started to vaccinate, shift vaccination, we saw a tremendous decrease in mortalities in post-weaning piglets. So average of 15 compared to an average about 21. So again, a good sign that something has done it. And the only thing we changed was the vaccine. So no other change in management practices. Total, same, using the EU vaccine and the American vaccine. So you can see that it is statistically significant that the performance can be attributed to the change in the vaccine use in this form. Just to show the p-values, just to show the confidence, 95% confidence level that all the reduction is highly significant. Okay, the analysis, basically as I said, the average mortality in all stages were lower using the PRRS modified live vaccine. And it shows in the chart, and it's actually sustainable. We've done it for almost 6 months and still going at that level. The process is much easier now to control. The firing rates, we can actually really determine what part of the firing rates is caused by a disease problem and what part is caused by management problems, because we've already taken out that factor of the PRRS. So there's no more excuse for the breeding people to say that, oh, because we have a PRRS problem, that's why our firing rates are low. So now that we've controlled in that aspect, we've actually been able to focus, and the farms has also been able to focus on their core competencies on breeding. And as I said, it's, all the data is statistically significant on the process of using the new strain. Okay, if you're going to look at the serological profile after the vaccination, you can see that there are no more pocket populations, negative population in the south, and basically because of the very frequent vaccinations done for the south. And you can see it still shows that there's still some activity here, but because of the vaccination here, we feel, and because of the performance that's been seen after vaccination, then you can see that apparently the vaccine program is working for this farm. Okay, conclusions. Although PRRS situations, and our company is very, we believe in this very much, that PRRS situation in farms can be controlled without the use of vaccination. But there are some instances wherein vaccination is going to be the, if not the main, or it's going to be a very important part of PRRS control, especially if you have farms located in dense areas or farms that have difficulty coming up with a good isolation facilities for their incoming gilts. Farms who won't spend money to depup or repopulate their farms, so they want to maintain their own way of breeding or populating their animals with gilts. So if there is some difficulty in these areas, because biosecurity is a very good byword, we always say biosecurity, but if you're going to look at the actual effective biosecurity, it will take a lot of commitment, a lot of focus, a lot of things to be set up by biosecurity program in your farm. Biosecurity doesn't stop with a good sign that we practice biosecurity here. It has to be done the very moment that you step into the gates, or the very moment that you check the feed mills, where your feeds are coming from, or you check where your gilts are and how far is your isolation areas from your main herd. So biosecurity is, as I said, a good byword, but you have to follow it very much. So if there are some instances that you cannot really follow a good biosecurity program, or your farm is located in a area when it's going to be difficult to maintain this, then vaccination would be a very good, well, could be the main program for controlling and managing PRRS. Okay. Of course, the last line is one of the wish lists of the vets in our country. We feel that still a homologous vaccine would be very good in controlling the strain, the problem, but with the difficulty of diagnostics or the facility to produce the right vaccines, then the right choice of vaccines to use in the farms is very critical to have a very good result in your programs. So you see, that's the presentation for case study for
Thank you very much, Angel. The floor is now open for questions. Okay. Yes.
Thank you. Could you tell in more detail about the vaccination schedule? This is the first question. The second one, have you experience in vaccination in the backyard pig production?
Okay. I think the first question is the scheduling of the vaccination being done in the farm. As was mentioned, the vaccination is all pigs at 21 days old were vaccinated, 21 days old, and the sows were vaccinated every 3 months, just to push the issue that everybody should be exposed to the virus or to get the antibody levels up. In terms of problem, I think it's going to be very common that every time you vaccinate your sows, that you might get some issues on reactions, on possible recycles, but we feel that it's more on the procedure of vaccination, on how the sows are managed, how you're going to go through the whole farm and vaccinating and restraining the animals that could have been more of a problem. But as I mentioned, because of the performances going up, I guess that problem on stress on the breeding animals would have been very minimal, considering the firing rates and the conception rates went up. So I guess if there's an issue on too frequent vaccination of sows, it's going to be very stressful for your sows, especially when they're a little bit pregnant already.
Okay. Any other questions? Just beer.
You mentioned that, in your case study, there was a high pathogenic strain.
Yes.
From Chinese strain?
Yes, actually.
Was it high
yes.
pathogenic Chinese strain or
Yes.
classical Chinese strain?
Actually, in the map I showed you a while ago, just a few kilometers away, that's where the samples we sent to the US was serotype, or they found out it's related to the JX143. And as also a problem we have, or a disadvantage we have, we don't have the diagnostic facility on the ground in the country. So we as I said, we assume that it's the same problem, because when we sent it there, that's the strain that we saw. It's related to the Chinese strain, the JX143.
All right. Yes, sir.
Oh, thank you. So you showed a still high level of mortality. So have you ever recommended herd closure to the client farm?
Culture?
Yeah.
Well, actually, that could be one, to isolate the virus. Is that the question you want? A recommendation?
I think if you apply the additional closing herd closure,
Yes.
might be the best management
Yeah.
for this situation. So have you ever tried to?
Yes,
pursue
actually,
that?
what we did was did the herd closure first. When you say herd closure, there's nothing coming in. We don't have any gilts. We produce our own gilts on the farm. But as I showed you, that even though we did that, because of the nearness of the next farm, actually that's what we feel that's actually perpetuating the problem. So it means that we really couldn't stand on our own and say, okay, we do herd closure, biosecurity, if we don't have, if that's how near the other farms is. I guess the best way is actually for all those farms in those areas to really sit down and say, okay, let's agree that nobody brings in any animals. Let's do a good vaccination program. Let's control the feeds. But we did the herd closure, but unfortunately, it's not enough. Okay, although you're right that the mortalities are still at the high level, I think the next step we wanted to try out is probably do a more thorough PCV control. But we don't want to put too many things inside just to make sure that we're targeting the right problems at the same at one time at another, because vaccines are still pretty expensive for farms.
Okay. Any more questions? All right. Professor Yang.
So, Dr. Manabat, I have a question for you. So you mentioned the variant PRRS virus in Philippines. I believe they have highly homology with Chinese strains.
Yes,
so, can you imagine what's the possible transmission route from China to Philippines? Because there are another distance, from China and Philippines, which is different from China with Vietnam. So that's very close border. We have a border. So.
Actually, we also want to know exactly how it came there. But I guess if there's anything that would have come, it's most likely going to be pork products. Yeah. But actually, we're not supposed to get any pork products from China. But you're right, it's still being debated wherein how we really got those strains into the Philippines, considering it's also an island and the distance between the mainland.
Yeah. Maybe Dr. Ray Galban could share some ideas on how we possibly got. I hate to put you in a spot.
For the information of everybody, we have a heavy importation of pork products from China, which are used by our Chinese restaurant in the Philippines. So that could be a possible pathway of transmission.
Thank you very much, Dr. Galban. One question over there.
Do you think it's possible to importation of salmons, boar salmon or pig salmons to Philippines? So I wonder that could happen to Indonesia too. So far, no information on birds in Indonesia so far. But again, learning from lesson learned from Philippines, what could be the most suspected mode of importation from Chinese or from China to Philippines? So swimming pigs is, of course, no matters. The second question is, did you have what is a cost-benefit analysis using vaccines in the Philippines? Thank you.
Okay, so the first one, in terms of science, actually, as mentioned, the semen actually from affected farms can actually transfer PRRS. So in that sense, we have to make sure that if ever you're going to import semen, you have to really know the health situation, possibly ask for PCR testing on the semen batches, try to check where they're coming from, and I think aside from the pork imports, and considering the pork imports, possible pork imports also, so the most important thing is actually a good control measure on the borders, on how to do good checking on the products that are coming in. So it has to be a good relationship between the sending country and the receiving country to really come up with a good program, and that's going to be a win-win situation that you want to buy from them, but you have to also take care of what's happening in your receiving country. And I guess in terms of cost benefit, with a reduction of from 50% to 12%, we really didn't need to do a cost benefit. But I think if we do that, then it's going to be easy to convince your colleagues, or for those farms who might be still thinking of the value of vaccinating, it's going to be very significant. The benefit would be very good.
There's one more question over there. Yes.
我想请问一个问题啊，就是说呢，刚才我们所看的话，你打了疫苗以后，这个死亡率还有10%几，那么话呢，我想问一下，就是说你这个猪场的话呢，母猪发生病以后，以及话呢小猪发病以后哈呢，它还混合感染有其他一些什么病？那么你除了打了疫苗以后，还对于这些其他的混合感染做过一些什么样的处理措施没有？好，谢谢。
Well, it seems like your results show that even after vaccination, you still get the mortality higher, more than maybe double digit.
Yes.
about it.
Yes.
Yeah, and the question is, well, is that possible that you still have other pathogens involved in the infection, and then what can you do to make sure better result?
Yes, as I mentioned at the start of the presentation, this farm actually has everything on it. We vaccinate for mycoplasma. When you open up, you still get some signs of mycoplasma, which could be related to the immune suppression situation of some diseases. So as I said, we are going to still focus on the other diseases because mycoplasma on its own or SIV on its own can cause a lot of problems in your farm. So this is just ruling out one major disease first, trying to make sure that you focus on the effect of PRRS on your farm. Then after that we've settled it, we've seen a more constant performance on by eradicating or managing one disease, then is going to be starting on another. Right now, we're doing a lot of antibiotics testing, but as I said, we're still looking at other possible changes in the vaccination to put it down. Because you're right, at this level, it's still not going to be very profitable, or if not, the farm is still possibly losing money because of the mortality. So we have to just make sure that we rule out one by one. It takes a little longer time because of the lack of a good diagnostic support in the ground. But there are still some major programs we can input into this farm.
Okay. Maybe one last question from the audience.
我想这样说，您刚才提到中国猪，我比较感兴趣。但首先，我想说，我们中国本来可能也没有，你是否可以想一下，可能是从不一定是中国传进去，是不是还有别的途径？如果解答了这个问题，可能我们也找到我们中国从哪里传进来的问题。谢谢啊。他讲的这个中国猪，那好像是中国传，但我想。首先我们中国本来不是研发的地方，对吧？我们也在找这个来源。那这个也不一定唯一是从中国，是说您是可以从考虑是不是还有别的地方能传过来这个意思啊。
Well, regarding to the resource of the Philippine PRRS, and you do have Chinese pigs. And but we ourselves are still trying to find the origin of this virus. Is there any other possibility that the Philippine PRRS could appear from anywhere else?
Yeah, I guess since we're also importing, well, the possibilities are there. Since we're importing animals from all over the world, so possible of it coming from other sources are there. That's why the only fact that we know it's actually related to whether it was actually just named here, sorry, named in China, but the only fact we know is just related to the one seen in China. So whether it came from there, I did not mention it. It's it's just that it's related to the Chinese strain.
All right, thank you very much, Dr. Angel Manabat.